Okay guys, this is the first page of your area packet. I'm going to just really quickly go through the 4 formulas, and then I'm going to do 8 problems with you, and then the next page you're going to do by yourself. So here we go. These formulas you're going to get on the test. These 3 here are actually on an SOL formula sheet that you get on the SOL, so we feel like since it's on there, we don't need to make you memorize them. This one's not, but we're still going to give it to you on your test. So let's take a look at this first one really fast, this triangle one. Grab a pen. It says the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So I'm going to just draw kind of a generic triangle here. It's not necessarily a right triangle, okay? The base is always going to be the bottom, or you can pick any side. But the most important part is the height has to be perpendicular to the base. So for instance, that might be my height. So if I want to find the area, I do 1/2, the length of the base, times the height. Remember, height has to be perpendicular. I'm going to do that in red right here. I'm going to put H must be perpendicular to the base. And in the case of the trapezoid, bases. Okay, H must be perpendicular. So for a parallelogram, rectangle, or square, rectangle and square easy, but a parallelogram is a little harder. Normally it looks like this. Okay. Here's my base. The height, again, has to be perpendicular. So there's my height. Again, for a trapezoid, I might have a base like this. I might have a base like this. If this is base 1 and this is base 2, the height has to be perpendicular to both. Okay. For a rhombus and a kite, it's kind of similar. We have 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. The diagonals must be perpendicular. So for example, if I have a kite or a rhombus, okay, that might be diagonal 1. That might be diagonal 2. But they have to be perpendicular to each other. So this whole thing here might be diagonal 1, and this whole length here might be diagonal 2. So let's do some problems together. Find the area of the following figure. So the first thing we want to do is figure out which category it goes in. Well, this is definitely going to be a parallelogram. And my formula for parallelogram is area equals base times height. Well, my base is 20. Remember, my height has to be perpendicular. I'm going to start doing my heights in a highlighter. My height has to be perpendicular, so it's not the 15, it's the 12. And if I do 20 times 12, I get 240. Okay, on to number 2. Again, we have a parallelogram, which means my formula is base times height. Now, my height has to be perpendicular to my base. So this is the only height that I can use because it's perpendicular. That means the base that it goes with is going to be this. Okay? Because it's a parallelogram, we know opposite sides are going to be congruent. So that will also be 4.7. So my area is going to be my base, 4.7, times my height, 5.7. Which is going to give us a grand total of 26.79, and I really should put inches squared. Remember, area is always going to have squared. If you think about it, like if you look at the ground, I know our room's carpeted, but if you look at the floor, you see square tiles often on the floor. Area, which is like a flat surface, is always in something squared. Okay, number 3, we have a triangle, so my formula is 1/2 base times height. Okay, well my height has to be perpendicular, so here's the height that I'm going to pick. That means this is going to be my base. My base is a total of 7 meters. My height is 4 meters. So 1/2 times 7 times 4 is going to be 14, and it's meters squared. Well, here's another triangle. Remember, my height has to be perpendicular to my base. So if I were to pick this as my height, it is perpendicular to this. And if I turn the paper, I'm going to turn it really fast, you'll notice that here's my bottom. This is perpendicular. It's my height. It goes to my highest point. So I'm at, oopsies, I forgot my 1/2. Sorry, guys. Why don't I write that again? So I've got 1/2. My base is 4.5. My height is 6. So I get 1/2 times my base times my height. And I get an area of 13.5 yards squared. Okay, let's keep going. Oop, looks like I have a trapezoid now. Well, my area for a trapezoid is 1/2 height, base 1 plus base 2. Remember, my height has to be perpendicular, so there's my height. Here's my base 1. Here's my base 2. So I've got 1/2. Ooh, this one's tricky. I don't have my height, so what kind of shape is this? Ah, it's a right triangle, right? So I can do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 5 is my hypotenuse, so I'm going to have 3 squared plus h squared equals 5 squared. And hopefully some of you by now are noticing we have a Pythagorean triple. So my height is 4. Oopsies, I almost didn't write 4. My base 1 is 6. My base 2 is 6 with an additional 3. I'm sorry, that 4 is so ugly. That's going to drive me crazy too, so why don't I use a little white out here. That looks a little bit more like a 4. Actually, I think that might be worse. Sorry, guys. So 1/2 times 4, 2 times 15 is 30. Okay, let's go down to number 8. It's also a trapezoid. So a trapezoid is 1/2 height, base 1 plus base 2. Okay, notice again my height has to be perpendicular to my bases. Okay, since this thing here is a square, so 8 and 8, we know this will be 8 as well. So my height is 8, my bases are 8 and 14. And I get 88 for my area, 88 centimeters squared. Okay, let's do number 6 and number 7. So number 6, we forgot to mark it. For a kite and a rhombus, we kind of have to tell you which one's which, but this is going to be a kite. And for a kite, we do 1/2, diagonal 1, diagonal 2. Well, the length of my first diagonal here is 6. The length of my second diagonal here is 6. So if I do my area, I end up with 18 meters squared. Okay, one more. This is a rhombus. And the reason we have to know that this one's a rhombus is because they only give you this part. We know because it's a parallelogram, rhombuses are parallelograms, that diagonals bisect each other. So if this is 30, this is 30. If this is 20, this is 20. So my area is 1/2 diagonal 1, diagonal 2. Diagonal 1 is 60. Diagonal 2 is 40. It doesn't matter which one's diagonal 1 and which one's diagonal 2, as long as they're perpendicular. Well, that's going to give us a grand total of, ooh, that's big, 1,200 feet squared. Okay, so that's your introduction to area. Hope that's helpful. And then go ahead and do the back page of this worksheet on your own.